Hello guys, welcome to this second video. So we were discussing a little bit about the versus of the different conditions in the previous video. As I mentioned one more time, remember that it is a matter of finding advantages or disadvantages. None of them is per se better than the other. They just sometimes have better uh, possibilities of adaptation for the public that we have at a given moment, right? So just think about it in that way. Hopefully, comparing those books, that was the assignment number one. Um, well, gave you like a general idea of how sometimes a classic is better than a new book, or vice versa, lengthy, short, etc. Right? Hopefully, you were able to do a deep analysis into these different things. So we're going to finish this week with this detailed information about a detailed analysis about background information. We have already mentioned this in the past, yes, in some of our previous lessons, but the idea is that we're going to analyze this feature by feature in this particular one. Okay. So here are some of the problem features, and when I say problem, I mean not necessarily something bad or negative, but some problematizing situations that may be even good for your lesson. Yes, that you can take advantage of that if, let's say, your public is advanced enough or interested enough, which is also really important. Or simply, if you are going to focus your lesson completely on language and you're not really interested in discussing any of these, at least it's something that you must consider in order to avoid problems or to be prepared for questions or be able to answer certain things that students surely are going to ask or are demand clarifications for. Okay? So let's say that when background information is required, and most of the times it is required, sometimes less than others, and somehow, let's say for a book or tale or whatever to be enjoyable, normally you need to provide at least a little bit of information to contextualize the student, and think about context as one of the most important parts of the use of literature in language teaching, right? So let's start with the first one that says social conventions and customs. Definitely, that's something really important. Uh, let's say, for example, that if you're going to enjoy a book such as The Lord of the Flies, you would require to know how usually students are sent, students of that time were sent to leave on their school. Yes, that is something that doesn't happen really often right now, so you probably would require to explain those sort of customs or social conventions, right? If you take a look at something cultural, such as the fact that people take food to funerals in United States, for example, that is something that we don't do, and I think that maybe for some people I mean, that may be a little bit offensive or even sometimes disgusting, no? But there is a social convention that you sometimes require to explain somehow. And many other customs, like going to the school without a uniform, like celebrating certain things. Well, those things are important to know. Yeah, so even though if you explain the whole origin of the thing and dedicate a whole class to explain that, or simply you just mention it as a minor detail, it might be helpful and useful, no? Then we have attitudes and values. Imagine that you're reading a book such as Zulu, or it's Chaka Zulu, that is one of the classics of indigenous literature of Africa, right? Well, there are a lot of different things that may be opposed to our values. Yes, they are, for example, young children are submitted to a certain amount of tests and let's say a strain that may be abusive for us as Westerners. Like you normally wouldn't put a kid under such a strain, yes, just in order to prove that he is a man, that he can make the transition between a teen and a man, no? But that nevertheless is normal, if we can call it that way, over there, right? Under this particular culture. If you're going to read a book such as 300, yes, the one that has a movie, and you're going to be in contact with this society which is so strong, which is so exigent with their kids, which if there is a malformation or a lack of let's say what is perceived by them of ability, so the kid, the baby is sacrificed, yes, he's not even given the chance to progress in life, well, that would definitely be opposite to many of the values that we currently have been informed. And that can be even problematic if, a principal or a parent considers that is not the way it should be. Well, it may be problematic for you. So you need to anticipate these different things and contextualize something like that. Social class and distinctions. Think about a book such as Pride and Prejudice, for example, in which women were relegated from society, like they were merely objects to marry. Yes, they couldn't have property, they couldn't inherit property unless they were married, like no matter how rich they were. If like, I don't know, their parent, for example, their father died and the girls had not married, so all those properties and money were lost. So this has a lot to do with that. If you're going to read a book like something related to the Romanovs or Anastasia, so you need to know about royalty, about the queens, the kings, something like that, right? If you're going to read a book such as Oliver Twist, for example, right? So you will find how it's very important to know the differences between the beggars, the orphan kids who were somehow dispossessed, and the middle class, and the people who exploited them, and the upper class. Yes, it's very important to know a little bit about that. Now, the next one is really important, yes, the one about religious and political ideas, and it is such of a little bit of a sensitive topic, right? So, in order to understand a book such as A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens, you will require to know a little bit about Protestantism, or if you are going to read again a book related to the ancient Russia, so you will require to know about Orthodox Catholicism. If you are going to learn something based on World War II, yes, such as a lot of different books that we can find, such as Maus, for example. You need to know a little bit about religion in terms of the Jewish religion and their practices and what they do and what they believe in and what they don't do because of their religion and what do they eat, right? Same for the political ideas. If you're going to read a book such as 1984, for example, you would require to know a little bit about extreme right and socialism and left movements and leftist movements, manifestos, observation, control, power, all these different things, right? So it's important to get to know a little bit about that, right? Now, the next one that is common is really important: geographical features and climate. I think that especially all of us having been born in Colombia, like we got to know the seasons, for example, snow and fall and something different from summer and winter, and even the winter, just mentioning that it's really cold or rainy. We got to know that because of movies or books or stories, right? So this is really important, getting to know how the environment has something to do with the story. Yes, sometimes the environment is or the location, the place is almost like an additional character, right? Take a look at the Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, or the Adventures of Tom Sawyer, and Mississippi River is almost like an additional character, and the heat and all these different things that make the environment, or the let's say the landscape of the book, and that's really important, right? Same happened with a book such as White Fang, for example. This movie about a Siberian Husky, and how it's very important to know that it was really difficult to travel from one place to another, and that's why this dog, this husky, became almost a hero, because he was able to traverse all this snow and difficult conditions and cold. Right, this is really important. Now, diet and dress, of course, I have already mentioned about a little bit about this when I was talking about the Jewish people. What do they eat? Well, in some other contexts, it's also really important to know about the food, about what do they prepare, like how is appetizing to eat something such as a kidney in the UK, for example, or how some people eat insects or even domestic animals. Yes, there are a lot of different mentions to this in different books. How is there are certain like gastronomic features that are completely foreign to us, that we don't know what is that about. Even if we know the name, like we really don't know what is the taste, how does it look like, how do you eat it. Yes, that's really important. And of course the dress has a lot to do there. Let's say that the way we dress somehow projects a semblance of identity, and it projects a lot of different things, and sometimes it's practical. I mean, it's for practical reasons, sometimes it's only cosmetic, but that is really important. So what does a hat mean? What does a dress mean? What does the possibility of wearing a short miniskirt implies? There are technical things such as the dresses that are used exclusively by soldiers or by surgical personnel such as doctors or surgeons or nurses, or we're talking about knights, for example, some very specific names for their parts of the armor, or their swords, their axes, a morning star. Well, all these different things that it seems to be really important to get. And then finally, the historical background per se. Is this a country or a location that is a colony, that was invaded, that was the winner or the loser of a war, that it is well known for being in the first world, a rich country or a rich town or city, or on the contrary, it is a third world location in which poverty is abundant, in which the connotations of these different things makes it speak a different language or have a particular slang or something similar, right? So the historical background is very important. Now, when you are going to analyze a book, you need to consider all these aspects, right? But sometimes just some of them are really relevant. Yeah. So again, if we go back to a book such as The Adventures of Tom Sawyer or The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain, in which the protagonist is a little kid who is somehow, well, let's talk about Huckleberry Finn, which is somehow homeless, which his father has an alcoholic behavior, which this kid Huckleberry Finn is escaping with an slave, with a black slave, and trying to get a better life because they are both outcasts somehow. and that in the road of escaping, they travel through the Mississippi River, and they find a lot of different people, good people, people that help them, people that are willing to aid them, and some other people that are trying to take advantage of them, right? So with this little summary that I give you of the story, I would say that, for example, it is really important to discuss in advance social conventions and customs, social class and distinctions, religious and political ideas, and geographical features and climate. Well, maybe historical background also as well, right? I omitted the other ones because I think that they may be important, but they are not the most relevant, right? So I just picked from the top of my head in a random story that I just remembered that those could be the possible aspects or background information that I require to give to my students in advance. Now, how do I do that? It really depends on the population, right? I can create a short summary and somehow give them like a worksheet, and they will read it and they will know about it. Yes, that's a possibility, but then that would imply that they would have to read an extra material. They don't have to read only the novel, but now they have to read something extra, and that may be boring or lots of work for some. Then what about if I can show them a short video of about 5 minutes that summarizes this? I can find it online, hopefully with good animation, with good features, and that could be it. What if I give them like a comic book that has all this information? What if I give them like a podcast, something that they can listen to? Yeah, that's really up to you. What if I make a walking gallery? Yes, and I take an hour of my class for them to walk around a gallery that I created myself. I printed certain images, and then there's a short description, and they can have this walking gallery. There's a lot of different things that you can do, right? It's up to you, out of how creative you are, but most importantly, up to the let's say the interest, the level of the language, the needs and abilities of the students, right? That is like the most important one. Now, if you are able to have a background and be able to provide this information to them, what are some of the positive things that can come out from it, right? So if you go to the slide number 40, you will see a short list over there. Widening horizons, right? Widening horizons. Like if we're able to provide this information in advance, so they will be able to understand that it is not only a book they're reading, but a whole story, a whole world, a complete environment and society, right? We can get to know other ways of life, different from us. Yes, it's always interesting for some people to get to know how other people live and get to know how different they are and how they have different habits and customs, right? And that will permit me to enter a whole world of imagination. I can just picture myself in there, or picture just simply those people going through their daily lives, and they will stimulate my imagination somehow. And finally, I would say that if we're successful at providing some background, we are going to give the possibility to the student to appeal to the universal human emotions. What does it mean? Well, basically that no matter you are, no matter the time you were born in, no matter your geographical location, your religion, your political trend, things that you eat, things that you wear, right? No matter that, we all have some very basic emotions and some very basic values. Yeah. So you will, if you do a good work, hopefully you are going to find some relationships between the character in the book and the life of the student, right? Even if it's something small, because it's really a very archaic book and the customs and the habits are different, you are going to find that people still suffer by love, that people still enjoys love, that people still falls in love, that people still hate other people, that people still feel uncomfortable for a certain reason, right? So this possibility of coincidence, of somehow intersections between times and locations and religions and food and politics, will permit me to see that it is not only a book, but a reproduction of human existence, which is in the end the most important, right? Very well, guys. So as a second assignment for this week, we are going to do this. I am going to upload a short story. Yes, it can be a fragment or it can be a full tale. And you are going to analyze the background information that is necessary to completely, grasp the meaning of that text. Okay? So we have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like 7 features: social conventions, attitudes and values, social class, religious ideas, etc. Okay? So you're going to, according to your criteria, select the ones that are most relevant and explain a little bit about that. Like, why is it important with the text that I'm going to provide? Why is it important to know about the religion background, for example? So for each item, please do it item by item. You are going to basically give a short explanation of 2 or 3 sentences of why you consider that it would be necessary to provide that background information to students who read that somehow, right? Now, as I mentioned before, you don't need to do every single thing. Maybe the text that I'm going to mention focuses only on 2 or 3 features, right? It's very, very important to know about the climate and the geographical features, and very important to know about the diet and the dress, and very important to know about the historical background, and the others not, yes? So if you think that the others are not important based on what you read on the text, just omit that, okay? Please, we're going to be working in groups of 4 people maximum. You can work again as usual, 4, 3, 2, or individually if you prefer. But as there are like different aspects to analyzing here, it would be important you can work together to make it a little bit more time effective. Okay, so that's it, guys. We're still working on selection, right? On preparation of the pre-reading process. As you can see, it takes quite some time, but hopefully it will pay off. Next week we are going to be talking about editions and study guides, things related to biographies, to glossaries, and to different things related to this. But well, that will be on the next week. So have fun. Thank you very much. I send you my best of energies for this week as well. I wish you my best for you, for your families, for your relatives, your friends, for your own mental health and emotional health. Okay? So thank you very much, guys. Hugs, and see you around. Bye bye.